For over 100 years, the dream of flying has been tied to the roar of an engine and the smell of fuel. It was a loud, powerful, and world-changing invention. But what if flying could be different? What if it could be quiet? What if it could be clean? The idea of an electric airplane once belonged in the pages of science fiction books, a futuristic fantasy alongside flying cars and cities in the clouds. People imagined silent gliders soaring through the sky, powered by nothing more than a hum. These were beautiful dreams, but turning them into reality required incredible imagination and even more incredible science. The first whispers of electric flight weren't in giant workshops, but in the minds of inventors who dared to ask, what if? As early as the 1880s, long before the Wright brothers even flew, inventors were experimenting with electric motors and balloons. For most of the 20th century, however, gasoline engines were king. They were powerful and could carry planes across oceans. Electric power was simply too weak and batteries were far too heavy. Then, slowly but surely, things began to change. In the 1970s, a few pioneers built the very first piloted electric airplanes. One of the first was the Militki MBE-1, which flew for about 12 minutes in 1973. That moment has finally arrived. The quiet hum of an electric motor is no longer a distant dream. It's the sound of the future taking off, ready to change our world once again. But the planes we fly in today come with a hidden cost, one that affects our planet and our communities. The first problem is the noise. When this fuel burns, it releases gases into the atmosphere, including carbon dioxide or CO2. You can't see it, but this gas acts like a blanket around the Earth, trapping heat and warming our planet. Aviation is responsible for about 2.5% of all CO2 emissions created by humans. And that number is growing as more people fly. This is why the idea of electric flight is so exciting and so important. It's about reinventing flight for a new generation, creating a way to travel that is kinder to our ears and to our planet. Imagine an airplane that takes off with a gentle hum instead of a deafening roar. That's the first thing you would notice about an electric plane. They are incredibly quiet. Instead of a complex jet engine that works by creating controlled explosions, an electric plane uses motors more like the ones in a fan or drone, just much, much bigger and more powerful. These motors have very few moving parts, which means less vibration and less noise. In fact, an electric plane taking off can be up to 75% quieter than a traditional plane of the same size. This would be a game changer for people living near airports, turning the disruptive roar into a background whisper. The next special thing about electric planes is what they don't leave behind. Because they run on electricity stored in batteries, they produce zero emissions in the air. There's no burning fuel, no carbon dioxide, no nitrogen oxides, no soot being pumped into the delicate upper atmosphere. It's the ultimate clean ride. If the electricity used to charge the plane's batteries comes from a renewable source like solar or wind power, then the entire journey, from the ground to the sky and back again, becomes truly green. This is a huge step towards a future where we can travel without warming our planet. Electric power also opens up a whole new world of airplane design. Traditional planes are built around one or two very large, very heavy engines, usually on the wings. But electric motors are much smaller and lighter for the amount of power they produce. You can hold an electric motor that produces hundreds of horsepower in your hands. This means airplane designers can get creative. Instead of 2 big engines, why not have 10 smaller ones distributed along the wings? This concept, called distributed electric propulsion, can make planes more efficient and safer. If one motor fails, there are 9 others to keep the plane flying smoothly. The biggest challenge for electric airplanes has always been the battery. Think about it. Jet fuel packs an incredible amount of energy into a very small weight. For a long time, batteries were just too heavy and didn't hold enough electricity to get a plane off the ground for more than a few minutes. The good news is that we are in the middle of a battery revolution. Researchers are making amazing breakthroughs, creating batteries that are lighter, safer, and hold more charge than ever before. One of the most promising technologies is the solid-state battery. Unlike the batteries in most of our gadgets today, which have a liquid component inside, solid-state batteries use a solid material. Companies are designing clever battery packs that are built right into the structure of the airplane, like in the wings or the body, to save space and distribute weight evenly. They are also developing incredibly smart battery management systems. These are like the brain of the battery, constantly monitoring the temperature, voltage, and health of every single cell. Of course, once an electric plane lands, it needs to recharge for its next flight, and it needs to happen fast. This has led to the development of megawatt charging. These are super powerful charging stations designed specifically for aircraft, capable of delivering huge amounts of electricity in a very short time. The goal is to be able to recharge an electric plane in about 30 minutes, the same amount of time it takes to refuel a conventional aircraft today. Solving the charging puzzle is just as important as building better batteries, and it's a critical piece of making electric aviation a practical, everyday reality. Electric motors completely flip this script. They are amazingly compact and powerful for their size. We are entering a new golden age of aircraft design, where the quiet power of electricity is not just changing the engine, but is reshaping the very wings we use to fly. The journey to an all-electric jumbo jet is a long one, but the revolution starts now with smaller aircraft. We are seeing progress in two areas: small commuter planes and urban air taxis. These pioneers prove electric flight is practical. One of the most famous examples is the Aviation Alice, futuristic design built from the ground up to be electric. It carries 9 passengers and 2 pilots up to about 250 miles. Ideal for routes like Boston to New York or Los Angeles to Las Vegas. The Alice showcases new design possibilities, long, thin wings and 2 electric motors at the rear. Its first test flight in 2022 was a quiet, historic hop, a Wright brothers moment for the electric age. Cape Air has already placed orders for the Alice for short-haul routes. This is a real business plan, not science fiction. Electric planes can be cheaper to operate and maintain. There's huge buzz around eVTOLs. Think helicopter meets small plane. Multiple electric rotors lift vertically, then transition to forward flight. Joby Aviation and Archer Aviation are developing air taxis to whisk people over city traffic. Imagine a 15-minute ride to the airport instead of an hour in traffic. Quiet, efficient, emission-free urban transport. For longer flights, engineers are building hybrid electric systems, like a Prius for the sky, a fuel-burning turbine alongside an electric motor and batteries. Turbines handle power-hungry takeoffs and long cruise. Electric systems add boost and quieter approaches. Hydrogen electric flight is another path. Hydrogen fuel cells generate electricity that powers the motors. The only emission is water. Hybrid and hydrogen solutions are stepping stones to clean up bigger planes while batteries mature. By placing small electric propellers all over the aircraft, engineers can control the flow of air over the wings in very precise ways. This could allow planes to take off and land on much shorter runways, opening up thousands of small local airports. It could even lead to aircraft that can take off and land vertically, like a helicopter, but fly with the speed and efficiency of a plane. With a distributed system, the failure of a single motor is barely a problem. The plane's flight control computer would instantly adjust the power on the other motors to compensate, and the pilot might not even notice a difference. This built-in redundancy makes the aircraft incredibly resilient and fault-tolerant, adding a layer of safety that is difficult to achieve with conventional engine designs. Furthermore, the integration of smaller motors allows for more efficient and elegant aircraft shapes. Wings can be made longer and thinner, which reduces drag. Some designs are even experimenting with boundary layer ingestion, where motors at the rear of the plane suck in the slow-moving air that clings to the fuselage, re-energizing it and reducing overall drag. These are clever tricks that are only possible with small, versatile electric motors. Electric flight isn't just about replacing old engines. It's about completely rethinking what an airplane can be and where it can take us. We are entering a new golden age of aircraft design, where the quiet power of electricity is reshaping the very wings we use to fly. The quiet hum of an electric motor is no longer a distant dream. It's the sound of the future taking off. The rise of electric aviation is more than just a technological marvel. It's a promise for a better future. Imagine a world where the skies are quieter. The constant roar from airports that has become a normal part of life in so many communities could fade into a gentle hum. This would mean more peaceful neighborhoods, better sleep, and less stress for millions of people. This new era of flight also promises to create a healthier planet. By eliminating emissions at the source, electric airplanes will help us clean up our air and fight climate change. As we increasingly power our electric grids with renewable energy like solar and wind, air travel will become one of the greenest ways to get around. We can continue to explore our world and connect with loved ones, but with the peace of mind that we are not harming the planet that we all call home. Perhaps the most exciting promise of all is the new connections this technology will create. Because electric planes can be smaller, quieter, and use shorter runways, they can bring air travel back to small towns. Thousands of local airports that are too small for today's jets could become bustling hubs for regional travel. This would reconnect rural communities, giving people more options for travel and creating new economic opportunities. It would mean less time spent driving to a major airport hub and more time spent at your destination. Electric flight could democratize air travel, making it more accessible and convenient for everyone, not just those living in big cities. The journey from a science fiction dream to a sky filled with quiet, clean airplanes is well underway. It started with curious inventors, was pushed forward by a need to protect our planet, and is now being realized by brilliant engineers and visionary companies. The challenges are still significant, but the momentum is undeniable. We are on the cusp of a new age of aviation, one that is quieter, cheaper, and greener. This is more than just a new way to fly. It's a new way to connect our world, protect our home, and build a brighter, more hopeful, and wonderfully quiet tomorrow for everyone. It could also allow airports to operate for longer hours, or even be built closer to where people live without causing a disturbance. The gift of quiet is one of the most immediate and personal benefits that electric flight will bring to our daily lives. By eliminating emissions at the source, electric airplanes will help us clean up our air and fight climate change. Every short-haul flight that switches from jet fuel to electricity is a small but significant victory for our environment. It's about being global citizens and responsible travelers at the same time. Thousands of local airports that are currently too small for commercial flights could become accessible, reconnecting communities and creating opportunities. The challenges are still significant, but the brilliant minds working on this are proving that a quieter, cleaner sky is within our reach. This new era promises quieter communities, sustainable travel, and accessibility to new routes and markets. The quiet hum of an electric motor is no longer a distant dream. It's the sound of the future taking off. Ready to change our world once again, creating a future where we can soar through the skies while protecting the planet we call home. The electric sky is not just a dream. It's a promise we're making to future generations.